Okay, so our next section here is anchor bolts. This is another big one. Now that we know a little bit about mounting the equipment, we're going to get to expand a little on what are the different mechanisms that we can use to actually anchor the machinery down. So, in this section of the um, chapter, it gives you some information about the different type of fasteners that you will use. At this point, you are more familiar with fasteners as you already finished the section on or the chapter on fasteners in the Millwright manual. So this one here is not as complicated. It's just basically a little more definitions on different anchoring bolts. So again, let's go back to following manufacturer's specifications for mounting equipment. The machine, depending on what it is, depending of how much vibration you're going to get, you'll have different applications, different methods of actually anchoring it down. So anchors that are commercially available out there, there's so many of them, and the Millwright manual only tells you a couple or a few of them there. So hold down bolts and hold down screws are often referred as anchoring bolts. However, the primary purpose of this is basically to secure the machine to either the base plates, the sole plates, or any kind of a structural steel foundation too. Fixed anchor bolts. You get heavy duty fixed anchor bolts are set permanently, um, basically embedded in the concrete or in the foundation. Okay, so many factors that you would have to know because of their design are right in here. So the type of machine, the foundation design, the thickness and quality of the concrete, and the type of loads that will be applied to the anchor based on the equipment that you're mounting to. So as you can see in the picture here, there's a few different styles. Okay. Notice this one here. When you have a style that is just goes straight down, it should be at least 25 the diameter and depth. Um, and this one here, and the paragraph explains it to you here. This one here that has a bent leg, at least 4 times the diameter or more. This ones here would have to be actually mounted before you actually so you have to have it mounted before you come in to the machine to mount the machine, sorry. Basically what I just told you, it's right in here. They need to be deep enough they need to be deep enough to ensure that they do not pull out when the machine is running. Another type here, you got the pipe or tube anchor bolt. These ones allow the bolt to be moved slightly when you're setting it up, so it gives you a little bit of play. Okay, and so you'll see this in figure 9 and 15 here. Okay, and this is how they look. So you have a pipe that goes in here. You got to be careful with this ones as you're installing it, and once they install, then of course you can fill them up, right? But there's your grout. The problem is that if you're installing it and you place grout before that, then it becomes a little bit of, you lose the play on it. The box anchor bolt. This is another style. Basically, you have a sleeve that goes in there. The pipe acts as a sleeve around the bolt, and the box provides clearance so that the bolt can be replaced. They're mainly used in larger equipment. Some of you might be familiar with mechanical expansion anchors. Okay. Again, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you'll see it coming up. Some of you might be familiar if you've used this at home, for instance. and you're driving, putting a picture frame or something in the wall, they have those little expansion anchors for drywall and things like that. So again, just to give you an idea of what they look like. So many different types of expansions. So two styles of mechanical expansion anchors that are most commonly used in the industry would be the stud type and the expansion anchor. The stud type expansion anchor and the drop-in anchor. There's this stud type expansion anchor, as you can see here. Pay close attention to these pictures here for when it comes to test purposes and general knowledge. Of course, it tells you what you need to do. So drill the hole. You basically, as you place it in, you have to hammer the specific bolt in, and it expands, and as it expands, then of course that would be tightened up inside. That is the expansion anchor. And the drop in, this one here, it's similar principle, except that it's got this cut in here. It's got an insert plug inside, and that insert, as you push it in, it tends to expand this opening as it's got the cutout there. And that of course keeps it in place. Set the depth of the anchor and all that is something that you can see here as they are drilling it out, hammering, and how basically this is how you will install this one too. Another one that you might be familiar with is chemicals, and in this case are adhesives. Okay, so an adhesive is some sort of epoxy resins that you apply. Again, you have to know the application. You have to follow the manufacturer specifications to actually apply it, because there are sometimes mixtures that you have to use. So you have to mix one with another. The area needs to be properly set for it. And as you can see here, it's showing you how to do it again. As I mentioned at the beginning of this chapter has a lot of procedure. It's going to get to a point where I'm basically, it's entirely up to you to internalize the information. You have to read, you have to study, you have to take a look at the process, because there's so many little things and so many steps that there's no point for me to actually going over and reading them with you. Setting anchor bolts into position. So you have to make sure that you have to take care of certain things, as you can see here. Okay. Often you will end up creating a template. Okay, so templates work awesome when it comes to setting it up and having a jig to set up the location of the anchors. So you'll see in the next few pages or a couple of pages, you'll find out how it's how the jigs work in a really good way. Okay, you're also in this section, and we'll end up taking measurements of two pump and a motor, and you will be laying it down in a piece of paper, and that's part of a practical that we have for you. And basically that's creating that, just like a little template that would allow you to transfer the information, the holes, the dimensions, into a piece of paper, and then therefore later into a concrete. And if you were to drill it or set it, you would just follow that with the proper dimensioning. One thing you want to keep in mind is that drafting unit here plays a big role, and you'll see a lot of the symbols right now in the next couple of pages where it tells you about center lines. Super important about starting a center lines. Your 3, 4, 5, very important to know that. So some trigonometry involved here. Okay. Welding to foundation rebar, that's another method for setting up anchor bolts. Okay, so methods of existing floors and foundations. Here we go. Lay out the position of the holes, working with the dimension on the drawing that again you will have from engineering or manufacturer specifications to the specific machine. You got to position the equipment and basically lay it down. This is not always doable, as the equipment is big enough. You can't be just positioning the equipment, basically tracing the holes and moving it out of the way. In some cases you can, but in some cases you are just not able to do it. This is important, accurate layout and care. It's so important because later on you will pay the dues if you don't do it correctly. And again, based on fasteners chapter, you got to know that you got to torque your fasteners to whatever is specified by the manufacturer. As you can see here, anchor bolts are normally torqued to 2/3 of their yield strength, or whatever they tell you that you need to set it to.